already posted a video with Ben and I talking through the glory days of Top Gear, and here is even more of our ramblings while heading up the motorway to Scotland. And then, to me, the highlight of Series 8 was the first amphibious cars.
Yeah.
So again, we went there on our road trip. You watched that video up there. And that was one of those step-up, like, iconic TV moments where you didn't have to be a car person. You're watching three blokes just drive their cars into a lake and attempt to survive. It looked freezing that day as well when that toy boat tub flips over. That looked cold.
The boat thing, I can see why people liked it, but I personally preferred the floating sort of parade palaces that they made for the road with the little turrets and stuff, and that kind of stupidity. For some reason, I thought that, and they did their own stretched limos.
Yes.
Because I really expected them to snap in half.
The fact they went through central London in those is mad. Like, I would just not be up for like holding up buses and crashing into traffic lights, trying to make turns, and yeah, those cars were sketchy. And James May's one being the Alphab, the two fronts of the car welded together. I mean, that is some serious engineering going on there. To keep those wheels locked and have one set free is just mad. Series 9, you've got the Veyron speed limit test at Reliant.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah,
that was
cool.
huge. Were you sort of consulting on that with James?
Yeah, which was great. That was perfect. So James maxed it out, and I think he did something like 250.2. I was doing the cornering shots, so even though I was told to go, there's a speed limit, if you could believe that. Is it 8 miles, Reliant? I think it's huge. It's the biggest expanse of tarmac I've ever seen in my life. But I was still keen to slightly break the speed limit in the corners, so I did do that. Also, slightly hopeful that it would help it down the straight, but actually it made no difference whatsoever. The car is so powerful, it just belted down the straight and took you up comfortably to 250 miles an hour.
At that speed, is there any vibration through the wheel?
That's what's so amazing about the Veyron. It's so perfectly engineered. There's no vibration. There's not an ounce of pulling, partly because you can't have any of that. It has to be rock solid. It's almost like being in a train. And as you go faster, it goes through a threshold sort of around 170 miles an hour, where it just squats into the ground. It just takes a set, locks into the suspension, and you feel that. You're like, everything is fine. And for the top speed runs, you turn the key and it configures the rear wing into like high speed mode. Yeah. The car's just absolutely rock solid until it rained. But James was about 2.2 miles an hour faster than me, which was slightly embarrassing or humbling. So, but we all got to sign the book. So Bugatti have a book there. So if you achieve the 250 mile an hour mark, you become a member of the 250 club.
Season 7, your Veyron trip from Turin, arguably the greatest Top Gear race against the plane. You've got some pretty serious behind the scenes stories from that because you drove it back, correct?
Yeah.
To get all the pickup shots. How many times do you think you broke 200 miles an hour in that car?
I don't know. I believe though that what we were doing was completely legal because we had the police force in each country working with us. We kind of had an escort. Obviously they couldn't keep up, but we had permits and all those sort of things. But I think a number of times we may have, stretched its legs.
You've whispered to me before about what you think the potential amount of fines were that you got from that will have landed on a Volkswagen desk somewhere. What are we talking? We're talking like jail time speeds, right?
I heard a rumour that there were quite a few of those fines coming through. But it might just be urban myth, Mike. What did you hear?
Well, I heard it was comfortably a 5-figure sum.
Really?
Of some of them over 200 miles an hour.
Okay, I did not know that. Okay. I did see a few lights flashing here and there, but what do you do?
And you just kept pushing.
To be fair, each place we went. So when we started in central London, police came out. We stopped filming. Stopped what we were doing. And director spoke to them, came across. They stayed with us for that bit of the night, and they just came back and said, they just said, make sure he gives it some shit. So that was great. So we kind of secured that roundabout. We were blasting around there, doing speeds all legit. So really, it was all, yes, we went fast, but we were doing it when we could see there was the space. We had an escort with us that was taking care of things, and it was all right. So what was amazing about that is we'd get on the autobahn, go full whack, you'd back off again to let the crew catch up, And we had the guys from Bugatti / VW chasing us. I think it was in an RS6, and they would just be up within about 10 seconds. They would just magically reappear. So that was the sort of chase car. It was pretty special. The thing is that wherever you would stop, within 2 minutes there'd be a crowd. The car looked so otherworldly. No one had ever seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
It was so hunkered down and this incredible features to it. That sort of face of the Bugatti.
And the engine just out the back.
Yeah,
sitting
and
exposed.
it made this sort of really beast sort of sound, quite an agricultural sound almost coming out the exhaust.
So I mean, Series 9 is just absolutely jam-packed.
You wanted more speeding fine chat, didn't you?
I wanted more speeding fine chat. Like you were going to say, yeah, it was 90 grand and I would have gone to jail 6 times.
I heard we got 56 tickets.
Right, so you do know that. Why are you hiding this? Right, here we go.
I don't know.
56 tickets.
But I don't know that that's true or not. And
who told you that?
I just heard it. I can't remember.
What do you mean you just heard it?
Everybody makes this stuff up.
In Season 9, another huge highlight. Season 9 is absolutely jam-packed, to be fair. Reliant Robin Space Shuttle.
Yes.
That, again, in terms of iconic TV moments, that is just up there with one of the best. When that rocket starts to just teeter over and you think, oh no.
That's the space shuttle thing is my favourite piece
Incredible.
of all time on Top Gear. It's brilliant because it's James and Richard they're in a bunker, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
So I was asking about that partly because I was curious from the whole Winter Olympics jet-powered Mini.
Yes. So the same guys, right? Same rocketeering guys?
Yeah.
Same team?
From what I understand, that project was entirely viable. And what was meant to happen was the Reliant rocket was going to go up. There was going to be separation. The Robin was going to fly around. It was going to do a circuit in the air and land.
So that was what the remote control guy was there for?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you imagine that?
That would have been epic.
Up, separate. He was going to fly 2 perimeters apparently, and then he was going to bring it down.
Okay.
And, you know, as they say, the result is determined by the weakest link in the chain. So the Rocketeers did their bit, and the guy was there, but it was they blamed the electrician. The circuit that was supposed to disconnect didn't disconnect, so it just came thundering down, which I think is a shame.
It was a serious explosion. When that thing hit the deck,
Yeah.
it was pretty catastrophic.
Of all the stuff that they've done, that is the one. If they could do it and redo it, and then you to see the Reliant Robin land, that would be special.
Yeah, proper shuttle.
Yeah. Now you're a massive Top Gear fan. Would you be volunteering to be the pilot?
Absolutely not. I couldn't think of anything much worse. But also, like, the scale of that, to take that on, fair play to actually get that thing up there in the first place.
I think the budget was over 6 figures for that.
Wow.
That's what I've heard. I think it's
cool.
I think it's their most expensive stunt of all time.
Then you have the first abroad special, so the US one, where they get those cheap cars and drive to New Orleans. That, like, you know, Clarkson rolling the cow off the roof, and all that stuff. Like that was another kind of quantum shift in Top Gear as a thing, and laid the foundations for where they are now, ending with all these specials.
I wasn't on that one, but I did hear about it. And that cow, I don't think anyone knew where he got it from. But obviously, it was well dead.
Who would think, you know what?
I'll put that on.
Get that on the roof.
Jeremy would, because it gets a giggle. And
How do you get it on the roof?
I don't know how he got it. He must have enlisted some local help. But what he hadn't thought through was that the camera team had all their kit in the back, and that the cow then kind of oozed through onto their stuff. The boys said that there was nearly a mutiny.
My God.
Because all their stuff was covered in this really disgusting. And they said how he tolerated the smell in the car. He drove it for some distance to bring it back.
Yeah.
And then offload the cow.
And then finishing Series 9 was the Polar Special.
Yeah.
Again, just these massive moments. That Series 9 is pretty tough to beat, although actually 10 is pretty special. But
Polar Special was great.
It was.
Again, I had nothing to do with it, but I did watch it avidly, and I found myself rewinding one section over and over again, which is when they've cut a hole in the ice, and basically they've got an ex-Special Forces guy, I think ex-SBS chap, is doing the survival training.
Of course.
Now, apparently, behind the scenes, he had been giving a lesson on how to use the rifle should they need to dispatch a polar bear. Jeremy had taken over the lesson. This guy was speechless. No one had ever talked to this guy like that. But of course he couldn't do what he would have done if he'd been in the military. So he kind of just staring at Jeremy.
Because Jeremy's done a bit of shooting, you know.
Yeah, so Jeremy took over the lessons like, I know how you feel, mate. Brick car. Anyway, but this guy train killer and all, bided his time and waited until he cut the hole in the ice, and he's like, get in. And they all start chatting. And if you watch him, his face is blurred out, and he just quietly walks behind and just shoves Jeremy into the water.
That looks horrendous.
You've got to watch it. And he's absolutely gibbering wreck afterwards, and he's yelling at him to roll in the snow, which is the correct procedure to try and increase his temperature. It's absolutely hilarious, but I cracked up watching that.
Series 10, I would say, somehow manages to up things even further. So it starts off with a pretty epic review of the Volkswagen Golf W12. So that's the Bentley engine somehow squeezed into the front of what looks like a Mark V.
Yeah, great. A nice on paper, but an evil handling project. I can just about remember it being undrivable.
Just too heavy?
Very heavy, and you can't put that torque through the front axle. It's just gone.
And then there's this, what could be seen as like a proper lads trip. They go to find the greatest driving road. James in that Aston, the sort of GT3 looking thing. You've got Richard in the 911, and then Jeremy in the Superleggera through the Alps. Again, that's one that would just be repeated on Dave time and time again, and I feel like I could almost quote my way through it. Yeah,
it's stunning. I think that's the lovely part, is the way they captured it. The landscapes they would get. The camera team were really a lot of what that look and feel that you knew whenever you're going to watch, if there was going to be an epic landscape, that they would capture it and make it look beautiful.
And after that, Veyron again. The Veyron just kept coming back. Versus the Typhoon.
Yeah, that was cool. Very cool.
That is so cool.
So Richard did all the driving. I went out and measured it all out. So we kind of created the course and everything. All we had to do was really work out distances and time and a nice course, and also to mark it. Because on the long distances, you got on that airfield that's so long and straight and flat, you could lose sight of your turning marks and everything. But we made it visible, so Hammond nailed it. It's just visually awesome, and really well captured. Because I think they had a helicopter in the sky.
Cool.
So they really had it a close-up of the plane doing its thing. A super cool shoot.
But I remember being so stressed for Hammond's turnaround, like braking as last minute as he could.
Yeah.
Getting that thing round and then sending it.
He's good, Hamo, because he will, drive things, and he's pretty brave and gets stuck in. And which you need to with that car, because actually, if you don't really use your thigh muscle on the Veyron, you won't get all the performance.
Right.
Because it stops even faster than it gets going. So you can do, I think it's 12 seconds to 250 miles an hour, something like that. But it'll stop in less than 10.
Then after that, the Jeremy and the Peel P50 driving around town, going into the BBC building. Oh, was the Peel P50 kind of, although it only happened once in the show, was that a car that came out at Top Gear Live and stuff like that?
It did.
Like a hero,
It really is to embarrass yourself. I was asked to move it, and I just moved it, not very far, in a warehouse, and pressed the brake pedal to stop. And I didn't do anything forceful with it, and it tipped over front ways. It actually just went straight onto its front and then sat back down again. And I looked around, and fortunately nobody saw, so I was all right. It didn't mark it.
So I drove one around Landau Circuit, and I've never been more uncomfortable in a car in my life.
I'm literally doing that turn at 10, 15 miles an hour.
And then after that, you could call it the greatest Top Gear thing ever, maybe? The Botswana Special.
Yeah. Very cool.
That was another game changer, just like next level again. And Richard's still got Oliver. It's still one of the most endearing TV cars ever. And having finished the Grand Tour, they felt the need to round it off with that. So it just shows how big a moment that was back in Series 10.
I had an African cousin in that, which was quite cool. There are many Stig cousins. There was the Rig Stig, of course. There was the green Stig, which I played. I also managed to play the German Stig.
The mullet.
But
nice.
But ultimately we were beginning to pop up everywhere.
Then came a race you were very much involved in, the London Transport race.
Yep.
You took the tube, well, public transport in general.
With 4 broken ribs.
Really?
Yeah.
From what?
I had my big GT crash literally 3 days before that shoot.
In Romania?
Yeah. So I flew back on Sunday, whatever it was, and I think it was on Tuesday, we were doing London Transport. But actually I could walk relatively comfortably. The major challenge is that I arrived on a like one of those sack trucks that was only waist high. So I was begging Wilman to get me a broomstick. So he found one, cut the bottom off and stuck it so I could put it up my back, and came in on that.
Bloody hell.
And then and then walked around. But it was really fun. It's one of the most fun shoots I've done.
I like you like reading the books and then like throwing them.
Yeah, the newspaper. I spotted it. I saw this big thing about Lewis Hamilton, and okay, there is a hint of jealousy. I didn't race in Formula One, let alone become a world champion. But I've met Lewis when I was racing. I was a few rungs of the ladder ahead of him up until he got his break. But it was cool. Obviously pleased to see him doing well. But the Stig wouldn't be pleased, would he?
Exactly.
He'd be angry.
And one of the big tests, probably one of the sketches you did, the Caparo T1.
Yeah, that was cool. Love it.
We've actually tried to get you in that again recently. There's 2 in the country that we know of, but they've essentially got IndyCar engines in them. So trying to get them running again is like a massive deal. So we'll keep working on that.
It's an incredible car. So that's my fastest time around Top Gear. So that remains the fastest production car around Top Gear. Even though it's taken off the board, that's nonsense.
Because of the speed bump thing.
Yeah, but there's loads of cars that wouldn't make it over the speed bump. But that was a road legal car, so it has to be counted. It had a license plate, and it was very, very fast.
There you go.
I think it was potentially, the thing was with it was so far ahead of everything else, it was a bit boring. So I can see why they took it off.
Then came again, like this series is just jam-packed. The brick car race, which we've talked about, like again, like that car coming across the finish line, Jeremy in like floods of tears, and it's very interesting that you then nearly took that on to Le Mans.
Yeah,
that should have been the perfect kind of next step from that, because it's such a great moment again.
I wished we'd gone to do more racing because the guys loved it. Jeremy got well into it, got, like you could say, he got emotional. He loved it.
Yeah.
And we went to Zolder, same thing. He loves being around racing, I think. They're all good drivers. You know, I always take the piss, but you know, they are into it. So we could have done more. And that race was quite exciting for lots of different reasons, not least of which I was also waiting to find out if my wife was going into labour, because there was a good chance that was going to happen during the race. So timings were good. Got to the end of the race and then off for the firstborn. So it worked out well.
And then again, another massive one to finish off this series was the German saloons around the Ascari track. So you obviously had a connection with Ascari already. So did you kind of make that one happen at that track, or was that completely?
Yeah, the Ascari track's fantastic. So Klaus Schwarz, who owned and created and founded the Ascari company, he built that track and he picked out his favourite corners from all of his favourite tracks and sort of put them in place around there. But of course, nothing will be identical to any other setting. So that created a very unique track, very challenging course. So I think we had those 3 cars, plus we had the F1 car.
Yes.
One of the coolest things I've ever driven. Epic, easy to drive. They were duking it out with those cars. So like, yeah, BMW came of age with the E92, which I think, yeah, that was my favourite. And the Audi, interestingly, with the 4-wheel drive, it was difficult actually to manipulate it as much. And I remember it actually seized halfway through one of the corners. I got the car started sliding at about 90 and just turned itself off.
Wow.
So that's all the power steering, brakes. So it's quite a big moment.
But out of those 3 cars, the RS4, the C63 and the M3,
yeah,
you'd go
M3. That M3 was phenomenal. It was really so good, so balanced, amazing braking, really good ABS.